Is Nigeria beyond saving? That is the heavy question setting the stage for everything we're going to cover today. As we break down this scholar's thesis impartially, we'll see exactly why they argue that the two most widely accepted solutions for Nigeria are deeply flawed. Now, we aren't here to take sides today, we just want to understand the mechanics of this argument. The source claims that the traditional paths forward, which usually involved either splitting the country up or waiting for a Western-style political reconciliation, aren't just ineffective, they could actually make things a whole lot worse.
So the very first widely accepted solution we hear a lot about is partition, just splitting the country up. But the thesis argues this is actually a devastating geopolitical trap.
And this right here perfectly illustrates why a newly formed northern state wouldn't just automatically be peaceful. The North isn't some uniform cultural or ideological monolith. Its ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity is absolutely staggering. You've got the House of Fulani, the Kanuri, the Nupe, and the Tiv, living right alongside over 200 other distinct ethnic groups. You have Sufi brotherhoods, Salafi movements, and the completely distinct Middle Belt, which is largely Christian and harbors its own separatist ambitions. The scholar points out that simply drawing a new line on a map wouldn't magically solve the tension. That new northern state would immediately fracture under the immense weight of its own internal diversity.
But the deeper danger? That operates on a massive global scale. Just imagine if a fractured North aligned itself with an anti-Western framework while the South maintained its traditional ties with the US and Europe. Suddenly, we aren't just talking about two new countries anymore. We're talking about two competing global ideological blocs. For anyone watching the geopolitical landscape, this is huge because it would pull global superpowers into a resource war right in the Gulf of Guinea. The West would likely prop up the South to protect its long-standing resource extraction networks, while China and Russia would court the North, not just for the resources, but to build a new geopolitical axis and project their power deep into the Sahel.
Which leads us to a pretty grim historical parallel. The source describes this as a Korean Peninsula scenario. But here's the catch. Unlike Taiwan, which is shielded by a massive body of water, these two new ideological blocs would share a long, incredibly porous land border. And that kind of geography pretty much guarantees a permanent state of low-intensity warfare, insurgency, and cross-border sabotage. Instead of building schools and hospitals, both sides would be forced to dump their wealth into endless defense spending. The global superpowers might win strategically, but the ordinary citizens on both sides of that border, they would be the ultimate losers. Partition, the thesis concludes, is really just a proxy war waiting to happen.
Let's look at the second proposed solution. Using South Africa as a cautionary tale, this analysis points out a massive flaw in traditional reconciliation models. Sure, a truth commission and a brand new constitution might grant political rights, and it definitely creates good optics for the world stage, but it completely leaves the underlying economic power structures intact. In South Africa, the scholar notes, the white populations get massive amounts of land, and while a new black elite certainly emerged, the vast majority of the working class was left right where they started. Upward mobility went from literally impossible to just extremely difficult. It's co-optation, it's not true transformation.
Give us your resources for cheap, and we'll keep you in power. That striking quote really captures the author's view on why this model consistently fails in Nigeria. The global powers don't necessarily want a truly independent Nigeria, they just want a stable, reliable supplier of raw materials. To get that, they back comprador elites, a class of local leaders perfectly willing to extract national wealth, park it in offshore accounts, and keep the whole machine running for foreign benefit.
So, if partition is a trap and reconciliation is a myth, what is the alternative blueprint? Well, the proposed solution isn't a military coup, and it certainly isn't waiting around for a single political messiah. Instead, the scholar calls for the formation of a League of Extraordinary Nigerians. It's described as a decentralized, somewhat secretive collective of educated patriots drawn from absolutely every ethnic group and faith. Their mission? To quietly and patiently build parallel institutions. We're talking cooperative farms, local defense committees, and alternative schools. The strategy is to have a fully functional grassroots framework ready to step up the moment the old extractive state collapses. And the economic engine that would power this new blueprint is fascinating. The scholar isn't advocating for pure Western capitalism, but they aren't pushing for pure centralized Marxism either. They propose a true hybrid system. It's heavily inspired by the modern Chinese model, socialism with distinct local characteristics, but it's adapted strictly and uniquely for Nigeria. It aims to combine the raw, concentrated power of state-owned capital with the agility and efficiency of regulated market mechanisms. So it all boils down to this really crucial three-step framework. Step 1. The state steps in and takes absolute ownership of strategic industries. That means energy, mining, infrastructure, and telecommunications. Step 2. Everyday market mechanisms are absolutely still allowed to operate, but strictly within a tight framework regulated by the state to prevent exploitation. And step 3 is where the geopolitics come in. A ruthless, unapologetic Nigeria-first diplomacy. This means the country stops playing the West against China, or vice versa, and negotiates purely on what benefits Nigerians. If a Chinese partnership offers the best terms for lithium, they take it. If Europe offers better energy tech, they take that. It is a strictly pragmatic, results-driven approach.
Now you might be wondering, how does this actually solve those massive ethnic and religious divides we talked about earlier? Well, the thesis asserts that shared prosperity is the ultimate unifier. True unity doesn't come from forcing people to pretend they're all exactly the same. It comes from ideological alignment and ensuring guaranteed upward social mobility for everyone. Think about it. When people across all backgrounds, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Christian, Muslim, actually have solid jobs, security, good schools, and a real stake in their nation's wealth, those ancient fears and divisions naturally dissolved. They aren't ignored. They just become irrelevant in the face of mutual success.
70%. Think about that number for a second. Over 70% of Nigerians are under the age of 30. To put the sheer scale of that into perspective, by 2050, Nigeria is projected to actually surpass the US as the third most populous country on Earth. You have this massive, booming population that is highly educated, fully digitally connected, and frankly, justifiably furious at the crushing economic hardship and insecurity they live with daily. The socioeconomic powder keg is fully primed. Every single condition for a massive structural change is perfectly in place.
Yet, the spark hasn't actually arrived. The Scholar is deeply, sometimes brutally realistic about this. They openly admit that while academics and policy experts love to sit around drafting these perfect blueprints and theories, true transformation demands an incredibly high price. Revolutions are not written in think tanks. They are lived in the mud, the dust, and the tears of the people. It's a stark reminder that real, lasting change requires immense physical sacrifice on the ground, far away from the comfort of academic debate. It requires people who are literally willing to risk everything.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. The stage is completely set. The demographic powder keg is primed. Traditional solutions have been thoroughly exposed as illusions by this thesis, and a brand new hybrid blueprint has been laid out. So we're going to leave you with one final provocative thought inspired by all this. With all that intense frustration and potential brewing just beneath the surface right now, we have to ask, is this quiet revolution already underway? Is this decentralized League of Patriots actually already forming out there, one frustrated citizen at a time? It's a profound question, and the answer could very well define the future of the entire continent. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this fascinating thesis today and keep questioning the world around you.